Well, once again, it is a huge warm welcome back to our bookmakers.com World Cup coverage in association with Cobra Bet. I'm your host, Tom Lee, and it gives me great pleasure to say once again our ever-present source of analysis, opinion, and thoughts during this World Cup is back by my side, where he belongs, Brad Friedel. Brad, before we look forward, and there's still much to be excited about, look back, if you will, because only what feels like minutes ago, an epic game. Finally, Morocco are ousted, but not for want of trying. They put up a mighty performance against the holders, France.
Yeah, they did. When we spoke before, the early goal said it. If these teams, if Spain would have gotten it, if Portugal would have gotten it, France were able to get it. The early goal changes the whole complexity of the game, the complexion of the game, I should say, and Morocco had to come out, and at time it was a really entertaining match of football, really was. But I thought France was going to be one step too far from Morocco, and it provided to be. But Hugo Lloris had to make some good saves. There's the pinball in the second half that got cleared off the line, and it was just a really fun game to watch overall.
I mean, if you think to yourself that, yes, they're out, but they've won a lot of friends with their commitment, their endeavour, their energy. I just want you to home in, if you will, on a couple of the key moments, because a change after the lineups had been handed in, Saïs's injury, a penalty appeal unsuccessful. They hit the post. They had the ball cleared off the line. They went for it.
Yeah, they absolutely did. But in the run of play, this game, which was a little bit different than when they played Spain, a little bit different than when they played Portugal. I got the feeling through the game that France was in control. I know there was nervy moments, of course, for France, but that's the way France plays. Each and every game, they do concede some chances, and I thought Morocco would score, and the one cleared off the line was quite amazing, remarkable that it didn't go in. But they do. France plays open and they're expansive, and they will concede chances. They're going to concede chances against Argentina, of course. But I did think this game, more so than a few of the other games, that France was in control of this.
So, Brad, just to forgive me, but just to be absolutely sure, you think France have got another gear, and had Morocco scored, they would have engaged that gear and gone on and put them away, whether it was 2-1, 3-1, whatever it might have been?
Yes, I do. I felt that going into this game, and then as the game was progressing, as I was watching it, I felt that as well. I thought Griezmann was fantastic. I thought Mbappe was fantastic. Giroud wasn't as good as he's been in the previous games, and I believe that's why the substitution took place when it did. But I thought Dembele was very, very good on the day.
Of course, Morocco, we haven't quite seen the end of them, because they've got is it a privilege or is it a pain? They've got the third, fourth place playoff on Saturday against the other beaten semi-finalists, who, of course, will be equally crestfallen. Croatia beaten by Argentina, Morocco beaten by France. So Croatia against Morocco. Is that a source of pride, or is that the match that nobody at all wants to play in?
It's the match that nobody wants to play in, let's be honest. I was at a Copa America down in South America. We lost to Brazil in the semifinals 1-0, and we played Colombia in the third and fourth place game. This was down in Uruguay. It is a really tough mental game to get up for. You've put so much effort into trying to win a World Cup, so much effort trying to win a semifinal. You're deflated, and then you're almost going into I can't even say it's a friendly match. It's more of a charity match, mentality. Because I hate to say, because it's a World Cup, and then the sponsors have poured in lots of money for it, and the supporters have paid lots of tickets, or lots of money for the tickets and whatnot. But it's not the match that a lot of footballers want to go and play in.
And Brad, presumably there's another angle this time around, because if you're Carlo Ancelotti, one would imagine he's on the phone to the Croatia management saying, get Modric back to me, a crucial pivotal part of my midfield engine in one piece. Never mind playing in a wooden spoon charity match.
Absolutely. First and foremost, going into this game, and that's why I'm saying it's even less than a friendly match. I would say every single player that is participating in this game, every coach of the club teams they play for, and even the staffs of the respective countries playing in, first and foremost, they don't want any of their players to get injured. And that's not the mentality that you go into when you're in a must-win game. Of course, you don't want a player to get injured, but you're going to do everything to try to win the game. This is the complete opposite.
Finally, and feel free to say pass, because I think I probably would, but based on what we do know and lots of what we don't with regards to personnel, fitness, form, injuries, motivation, if I gave you a free wager investment bet right now, if you found $10 lying on the ground, what would be, loosely speaking, your prediction for that third, fourth place playoff?
I think Croatia will win. I think Morocco has spent so much time and so much energy in this tournament and got to the semifinals, first African nation to do so. I think they will be sort of in complete relaxation mode now. And the Croatian squad, I think overall is much deeper. I see a potentially a 3-1 victory for Croatia.
Interesting stuff. Maybe still we might stick with Morocco or Croatia, because with the theme looking backwards in a reflection mood, could you tell me, Brad, in your specialist area, who in your mind has been the standout goalkeeper of the tournament? Because we've seen the penalty saving heroics from Livakovic. We've seen the all-round brilliance and tight passes and flamboyant saves of Bono. We've seen Andries Noppert, the forgotten man, in goal for the Dutch. Loads more examples, but I'm sure you could throw at least one name into the frame.
Oh, absolutely, I will. And Martinez is a name you didn't mention either, who's done really well. This tournament in particular has been outstanding for goalkeepers. Very few, what I would say, blunders. Very few just out and out, bad goalkeeping performances. Been really solid goalkeeping performances. But the standout for me is Bono. Even though they lost yesterday. The two goals were not down to him. He was still the same calm self in the match on a whole. And to go into a semifinal for Morocco and only conceding one goal up to then, that was an own goal, and also keeping a clean sheet in a penalty shootout is quite remarkable. So he would go down as my number one of the tournament, no matter what happens in the final.
And of course, just as a little bit of self-indulgence, but one of the moments of the entire tournament for me, his save from João Felix in the quarter-final was frankly astonishing. So Bono, yes, please. Best defender, Brad, because there's loads of names in the frame. Listen, it's up to you. I mean, obvious ones that have really come to the fore. Not too many people pre-tournament were talking about the Croat, the 20-year-old Gvardiol, but they are now. What assured displays from him. Who would be your defender of the tournament?
So not position specific, just best defender?
Not position specific, but if you've got more than one, perhaps you could throw us a fullback and a centre back.
Well, my best back four, if it was in a back four, was Hakimi on the right hand side. I thought until Messi got a hold of Gvardiol, I thought he was truly remarkable. But that's he's playing against the greatest of all time, so that's okay. And he has a great career ahead of him. I had John Stones, and then I was mixed between Acuna and Estupiñán. Now Estupiñán only got to play 3 games, but I thought he was outstanding, the left back for Ecuador. And I think if they were to progress, people would have seen more of it. But those were the best defenders for me at the tournament so far.
Well, I raised my eyebrows slightly when you said John Stones, because that's fantastic to hear an English name being added. And of course, some assured displays from him. In the same way, Brad, and you might give us an entire midfield, but I was going to say originally best midfielder, but perhaps we can make that plural. and say which midfielders are the dogs barking for in America? Because who have you been most impressed by?
Bellingham, Modric, Griezmann. If it was a 4-3-3, I think they've been absolutely superb. Bellingham for his age, Modric for his experience and class, and Griezmann for really adapting to a little bit of a different role in this World Cup and keeping his qualities so high.
Yeah, of course, playing deeper and occupying those impossible spaces, particularly against England. I think we discussed this in some depth on our penultimate call, but getting into those little niches of space that are impossible to defend. So that's a fantastic midfield three. And of course, you've gone for the youth, the wisdom, and the experience, and the flair as well. With that energy harnessed, Brad, forwards, strikers, etc. Sounds like you're going to play a 4-3-3. So let's complete the team with the attacking threat.
Okay, so it's impossible to leave out the man who broke the French goal scoring record and who didn't even think he was going to be starting in the World Cup until Benzema's injury. So Giroud is the 9. Then one of the greatest of all time, Lionel Messi. He is playing like he knows this is his last tournament. Mm-hmm. And in the last game, the semifinals, you saw even pressing defensively, winning the ball back. He was remarkable in the semifinals. So you have Messi on one side, and then you just have the electric lightning pace of Mbappe on the other. That's not a bad 11, I think.
That is an absolutely stunning team. From stunners to shocks, and there've been a few along the way, because goodness me, those early departures for some of the big names, the Germanys, the Denmark, Spain going out on penalties. Goodness me, Germany losing to Japan, Argentina losing to Saudi Arabia. If you could only single out one of the many shocks in the tournament, what for you, Brad, was the biggest shock?
Okay, so a single game biggest shock would have been Saudi Arabia beating Argentina. That's the single match shock. The most significant team performance shock was Belgium. I did not think that they would underperform like they did.
And just with a view to Saudi Arabia beating Argentina, in a way, can you say there's a blissful irony to that in fact, it's motivated to Argentina to such a degree, because now in the final, and they've been playing knockout football ever since their first group game.
Yeah, and if we go back to our first discussion, I thought Argentina would start the tournament slowly. At no time did I think that they would lose to Saudi Arabia, but I thought they might stutter through the game and get a win. I did not predict that they would lose, but a lot of times the eventual winners do start a little bit slow, and then they gather pace as they go. With this, you hit the nail on the head, because they've had to play virtually knockout football from match day 2. All their class has come to the forefront. So and they have just been getting better and better and better, and they took it to a Croatian team that was excellent, and Croatia had a really difficult time getting into any rhythm. And then I'm going to go back to that man again, Messi. He's playing with legs like he's 25, and it's incredible to see, because he's so good.
So the biggest shock, Argentina 1, Saudi Arabia 2. The biggest disappointment, Belgium. With that in mind, Brad, should we, if you had a decisive and a final say on this topic, should we stick as we are at 32 teams, which has provided a richly entertaining format in 2022, or in 4 years' time, should they go to 48 teams and expand the World Cup and give more emerging nations a chance?
I like the current format, but I'm torn between this, Tom. I really am, because I think giving emerging nations an opportunity is very good for global football. I really do. What I don't like about it is anyone can have a bad day, and if you limit the amount of games that an Argentina has, for instance, they might be out in the first round. They might be the best team, and when you have 3 group games, it gives you a real good case study, so to speak, on who really should get out of there. If you only have 2 matches, and you get, one bad injury, 1 red card, it's really difficult for the top teams to recover. So I'm a little bit torn on the topic, because I do like the setup as it is now, but I do think it's important to spread the wealth, global football. So I'm sorry I don't have a more definitive answer,
No,
because I am torn at this
on the
time.
contrary, I think that's a very fair answer. Let me examine this and explore this in a slightly different method then, because if you will, I think one of the greatest satisfactions is that 2022 has been the World Cup of the emerging nations. We've seen some astonishing displays in dispatches from Saudi Arabia, from Japan, from South Korea. We've had edge of the seat moments from Morocco, who have gone on this astonishing run. I know 4 years is a lifetime away in football, but when you look ahead to the USA, Canada, Mexico in 2026, who has given you the clues that the green shoots of promise are there, that they too could make an impact in 4 years' time? Because you might very well say, a team who impressed me personally, I know there weren't a lot of goals or points to show for it, but Canada played some great football. The US have clearly got some very, very exciting young players. Might they be growing, developing, improving, ready to make an impact? Who have you seen this time around? Probably from teams that went out at the group stage, but that might have a bit more to offer in 4 years' time.
Well, another new crop of Brazilians are going to come. They're going to be good. I think Canada was, through qualifying, they were the best team in CONCACAF, and they have some outstanding young players. The United States as well, although we need to find a number 9, but we have 4 years to do so, and we don't have to go through a qualifying phase to do it. I think Spain had already started a restructuring, so to speak. So I think they're going to find some more very good young talent. But the 2 nations that I'm going to be most curious about on what they do because of the history are going to be Germany and Italy. It's normally they're 2 that we would always be talking about in the quarterfinals and beyond. I would like to think that they're going to be restructuring and they're going to turn up with incredibly strong squads. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with Argentina, because they're going to be, I would assume, missing out on one of the greatest of all time. A team with the likes of Croatia they're going to find it very difficult to find another Luka Modric, because they just don't grow on trees. So some of these nations they're going to be vastly different from what we've seen now and over the last few years to going into 2026. So it'll be quite remarkable to see.
Well, I love the way you're thinking there, Brad, because if you say that Germany and Italy have currently got a hangover right now, it looks as if Spain are going to have to reinvent themselves, or at least add to their format. Their total refusal to ever go long ball, like, for example, Holland did against Argentina. And then building on that theme, and you've already gone there really with Argentina, but add to that list France, Benzema, we won't see him again at a World Cup. Messi, a miracle if we see him again at a World Cup. Harry Kane for England, doubtful will we see him again in a World Cup. Will the superpowers have grown old and feeble and weak, and therefore open the door for a more level playing field?
Well, France will reinvent. They have a fantastic conveyor belt of talent in France. The same with England, and they're going to be very good also. Like those, you asked who would surprise me. So France being good isn't going to surprise me, and they will be. England being good again, it won't surprise me, and they'll be good again. Italy didn't qualify, but I can't see them not qualifying again. And I think when they do qualify, they're going to be better for it. Germany, to not get out of the group phase, they're going to all go back and reinvent. They have one of the best leagues in the world, one of the best youth structures in the world, some of the best coaching in the world, some of the best players in the world. So I think they'll be able to reinvent as well. Belgium is going to be a real interesting one because they had what was considered a golden generation, and I'd like to see what they're going to do, because it really looked, as the games didn't go their way, looked a split camp. But more so than that was the way they played. De Bruyne, for me, is one of the best midfielders in the entire world, and so he didn't look it in the games playing for Belgium, but he's going to go back to Manchester City, and people aren't going to be able to get the ball off him. So Belgium has some work to do and see how they can make one of the very best players in the entire world shine on the international scene. So that'll be interesting to watch as well.
Brad, we began with Morocco, quite rightly so, because everybody's second favourite team in this tournament. Do you think they will be able to back up this performance, or is it a flash in the pan and they might be back to 300 to 1 outsiders and out with the washing in 4 years' time? Might they not even qualify? In essence, can they do it again, or do you need more evidence?
Need more evidence, but what I would say is that whichever African nations qualify, they'll have the ability to do what Morocco did. Senegal had the ability to do it. Cameroon had the ability. They didn't get there in the end. Ghana, these nations have good players. Sometimes they need that added bit of luck. We could have, instead of speaking about Uno, we could have been speaking about Mendy. He's an excellent. Had one in the world, but they have these nations have very good players. African nations have very good players. So they're also, the qualifying is very close and very difficult to qualify. So I could see Morocco not qualifying. Not saying they will, but it's not going to be a guarantee that they qualify. So, but whatever African nations do qualify, they're going to be competitive.
Yeah, of course. Tomorrow, we've done a lot of reflecting today. Tomorrow, we will do the even more exciting bit and look ahead to Sunday's final, a game for the ages, a game I cannot wait to get into the guts of. So join us for that one. As a sign-off today, Brad, are the margins now, or at least are they becoming so razor thin that a little bit like, as an example, Leicester City in 2016 famously won the Premier League, but is the playing field now really leveling? Are the margins becoming so fine that old phrase, anyone could win it, that's almost becoming true now, because some of the traditional superpowers are getting a punch on the nose from some of the emerging nations? Does that trend continue?
The saying anyone can win it, no, because we got in the final. We have two nations that have won it before, so it's not going to go to a new nation. I think what is leveling out a little bit are more and more surprises will take place, but there's still a lot of work to do for the emerging nations to be able to sustain it over seven matches against the world's elite to actually lift the trophy. So we're not going to be finishing World Cup 2022 with a new nation lifting it. It's going to be a nation that's already lifted it before. So there's still some work to do for the other nations, and as well as, I'll use US as an example, as well as they came up against a European team that was very far from winning the World Cup, and the US was very far from beating them. So there's still a lot of work to be done.
Well, there is still a lot of work to be done for Brad and I. We'll be back here tomorrow to do what we're really looking forward to, and that is preview the 2022 World Cup final. It will, of course, be Argentina against France, potentially a match for the ages. Join us here then when we will do exactly that. For now, Brad, thank you. Over and out from us.